Hey everyone, Garth here. Thanks for listening to Psych Sessions. If you could go to wherever you listen to our podcast and you would follow that podcast or like it, it really does help us as we are trying to get out to more teachers of psychology. Also, if you haven't checked out our website, please visit psychsessions.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We offer free resources and valuable news that you are going to want to know related to the teaching of psychology. Thanks.
I had a triple major.
Of course you did.
Beverages, fraternity, and drag racing. Well, the third one is the one that put me through school my first 2 years.
Tell me about that.
Well, I never raced on the street. There was no point in that. So it was always on the strip on the weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if you win, you get money. So drag racing paid my tuition.
You've just heard Steve Davis, Emeritus Professor of Psychology at Emporia State University. Eric had the opportunity to sit down not only with Steve Davis, but with two guest hosts, Loretta McGregor and Jane Halonen, for this 241st episode of Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff.
Hi, I'm Bridget Hard, a professor of the practice at Duke University. And I'm a member of STP because it is filled with an incredible community of people who really share my passion for teaching. For me, STP is home. It's a sense of family and friends, people who inspire me, people who give me lots of great ideas for all the different challenges that I face as a teacher. And this community is waiting for you. You can join STP at teachpsych.org.
Welcome to another episode of Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. Every time I do this introduction, I always say this is a special treat. And when I say it today, I mean it. It's a special treat. We have Steve Davis with us with two guest hosts, Loretta McGregor and Jane Halonen. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello.
So, Steve, I just want to start off with how are you doing and what are you up to these days?
I'm doing well. As some of you know, I've had an unfortunate series of health issues, and I'm still kicking. Basically, I'm up to playing a little golf, working on music-related projects, and we've been supporting and doing a lot of things for a small college in eastern Kentucky, Alice Lloyd College. So I'm involved in helping with some projects there.
So does that mean that you're like so many of our other colleagues, you're doing the fake retirement? Like you're retired, but you're really still working on academic stuff. Looks like you got a new college, that you're working with. So do you still have a hand in psychological science?
No.
Okay.
No. In terms of my work with Alice Lloyd College, it really is for student-related programs. This college is in Poverty, Appalachia, and they are in the most poverty-stricken county in America. Percent of their students come from families, and you're going to faint when I say this, who make $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
And these kiddos at the college, when they graduate, 100% of the ones that want to go on to graduate school get in. And they come back. Over almost 90% of all the graduates come back to the area that they came, that they grew up in. So they're helping the community. And I appreciate the students there. I think in some ways, the students today are not the same, maybe in a lot of ways, not the same as Loretta and I can remember from our days at Emporia State.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And, I like these kiddos at Alice Lloyd College because they remind me of what it was like back in the dark ages.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you found that college or how they found you? How did you find each other?
Well, I found them. I was on the board of directors for Morningside College in Sioux City, Iowa, and the NAIA Women's Basketball Championships are played in Sioux City, the national championships. And I saw Alice Lloyd what? From where? There is no town, but there is a name of a town. They're in Pippa Passes, Kentucky. And Pippa Passes constitutes the entire college. I watched them play. They played with heart. They played good. They never gave up. They played a clean basketball game. Even though they got really beat bad, they held their heads up. And I said, I like that. I want to find out more about that school. And I did. And one thing led to another. And now we have an endowed scholarship in Kathleen's name for a woman's basketball player every year.
That is awesome.
That's how I found.
Yeah, Steve, you've done this your whole career, but you're making these contributions, whether academically or financially or in other ways that change young people's lives. Was there someone in your growing up that did that for you? How did you, when you were in high school, did you have it? I'm going to be a psychologist. I mean, do you mind sharing that story a little bit?
I think I always, in the back of my mind, knew that I wanted to be a psychologist. I didn't know what it meant. In high school, I skated through high school pretty easily. Never had to work very hard. And I only applied to one college when time to apply came. Why, I'm not sure, other than I was a very naive person. I had grown up as a young boy in Lexington, Kentucky. And at that point in time, the absolute greatest football player alive was Doak Walker at SMU.
Sure.
So I applied to SMU. We had moved from Lexington to Dallas, and I was going to go to SMU, and I did. And then it's sort of like everything went to hell in a handcart. I had a triple major.
Of course you did.
Of course. Beverages, fraternity, and drag racing.
Wow, I didn't think that third one was going to be that one, so thank you for that.
Well, the third one is the one that put me through school my first 2 years.
Tell me about that.
Well, I never raced on the street. There was no point in that. So it was always on the strip on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if you win, you get money. So drag racing paid my tuition. Tuition was cheaper back then. So I built my own cars and raced my cars, and My friends went out with me because invariably we would have to tear down if they think you're cheating and have done something illegal to your engine for the class you're in. They can pay money to have you tear down. And I never did anything illegal.
APA Publishing wants to give you 15% off your order. If you teach classes like counseling, clinical psychopathology, or multicultural psychology, then this is for you. APA Publishing has books that are written by experts that are grounded in evidence and really help teachers. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a book they have right now called Helping Skills. It's in its 6th edition, and it gives students clear, practical frameworks for understanding and learning counseling techniques. It's perfect for hands-on practice and skill development. Here's another one. Cultural Humility helps students build self-awareness and engage meaningfully across diverse identities and experiences. So head to apa.org because they want to give you 15% off your order today using code PS15. That's capital P, capital S, 15. Go check out APA Publishing.
So I'd win the race and get the teardown money. And then my friends would help me tow my car back and we'd put it together and everything would be cool.
So you were attracted to SMU because of a famous football player. Did you play football in high school or college?
I played in middle school in Lexington for, I think, 2 seasons, and that was it.
It's got to be quarterback, right?
No. No, it was down and dirty in the pits.
Okay.
Okay.
Steve, one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is this one. When you were growing up, was the conversation in your home, will you go to college, or was the conversation, what college will you go to?
I think it probably was neither. There was always the assumption that I would go to college. That was just a given. And my parents had no choice in the matter. I told them, I'm going to SMU. Excuse me. Now, you asked a question a few minutes ago about influences in becoming a psychologist.
Yeah.
I would say that there were 3 major influences. And these would be the 3 major professors that I had at SMU. They literally, because the triple major put me on academic probation you wouldn't believe. And I came within a hair's breadth of flunking out, big time. And Virginia Chansey and Al North and Jack Strange, who were the 3 old timers at SMU, they helped me turn around. And I went from a 2.000 the last semester of my sophomore year to a 4.0 the first semester of my junior year, and never made anything less than that any time.
What did they do? What turned you around?
Actually, I had gone to work in, this is a resort, a college-run resort in Wisconsin. And it was a summer place for little conventions and conferences, and cheerleaders would come in and who knows what. And all of the workers were students, college students. And I got to work in the dish crew, washing dishes. And there were students there, and I thought to myself, man, I have had some of the best professors at SMU, and I was so cool. And they were psychology majors from like Ohio State and University of Wisconsin, and they started talking psychology. I didn't understand one word they said.
Wow.
Came back to Dallas after the summer was over and went in. Actually, it was Virginia Chansey was the first one who said, okay, because we were talking about needing, I realized I better get my stuff together real quick. And she said, fine, here's what you do. And I did it. And it worked.
So, Loretta, do you think is Steve Davis your Virginia Chansey?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that and your experiences with Steve.
So Steve and I met when I was probably a junior in college.
Yep.
And we met through another mutual friend, Randy Smith. Steve and Randy were working together on some publications. They were also, big wigs in all of these teaching conferences, and they were the man. So I got to know Steve because I was working as a student worker in the Department of Psychology for Randy Smith. And Steve would call to talk to Randy. And he and I would have a 10, 15-minute conversation before he even got to Randy. We met in person when Steve came down to actually, I think it was for a Psych High installation maybe, or was it a department? Oh, ASPS. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Arkansas Symposium for Psychology Students, he was the invited speaker. That's how we initially met. And then we started having telephone conversations, like I said. And I remember one day, Steve asked, he says, hey, what are you going to do when you graduate? And at that time, my biggest aspiration was to become a social worker for the state of Arkansas. Now, social workers do great work.
Yep.
But now I realize that was probably not my calling. So Steve said, you should go to grad school. And I was like, I can't go to graduate school. And he said, why not? And I said, because I'm not smart enough to go to graduate school. He said, who told you that? I said, well, I told myself. He looked me dead in the face and said, you should never lie to yourself. And I mean, it took me aback because I thought, whoa, it made me really think about the way I thought about myself and my abilities. And he said, come to school, come to my university. He said, come to my school. I said, you live in Kansas. I don't know anybody in Kansas. And he said, you know me.
Hi, folks. Let's talk about intro psych textbooks. They often tell our students what to learn, but they don't tell them how to learn. And that's why Norton has brought in award-winning teachers like Stephen Chu and Ebony Glover to join Sarah Grisson on the title Psychology in Your Life, with a new emphasis on critical thinking through their Impact Learning Science Framework. Impact is an acronym, and it consists of 6 of the most actionable learning science principles that students need to succeed. And for the first time, these strategies aren't just explained, they're interactive. So as your students are learning course content, they're also practicing skills like monitoring, attending, and thinking critically, using the study tips that feel most helpful to them. And the result is that students don't just learn psychology, they use psychology to succeed in school and in life. And Norton is going to give you a $15 thank you gift if you take 15 minutes to tour around the book. Just head to intropsych.wwnorton.com/psych sessions.
And every phone call conversation we had for several months was about, come to my school. I'll even write you a letter of recommendation. I'll help you do this. And he did. And I think when I got there, within a month, I think I had like a flat tire or something. I called Steve because he was the only person that I knew. But yeah, he was definitely one of the individuals, he and Randy. But if it had not been for Steve, I would have never probably even considered graduate school. And then after I finished my master's degree, he had plans for me and I ended up making different plans. We kind of butted heads a little bit, but
no.
But I always knew that he had my best interest at heart. And, he was one of those people, he realized that sometimes you got to let people make their own mistakes and don't hold it against them and then still support them. And that's what he's always done for me. And so I want you to know how much I appreciate that.
I appreciate your words. That means a lot to me, yes. Because,
okay, I'm sorry.
Well, when it's all said and done, the greatest rewards that I have had in teaching have been my students, without question.
Now you're going to make me cry.
There have been tears on the podcast before.
Well, there may be tears today.
Yeah, I was emailing with Jane about this yesterday, and I said there's a 92% chance that I will tear up at some point. I know what I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna hold off for that for a while.
No, I keep Kleenexes nearby, so I'm good.
Okay.
They're normally for my students, but
Steve, how did that happen? I mean, you've had this influence on faculty and students for decades. I mean, not everyone, actually, very few people are as student-centered as you are. I mean, you went to college, you went to grad school, you got your PhD. I mean, you did most of your research and your career with undergraduate students. Didn't you, in your research methods book?
No. I'm going to
say. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop there and let you correct the record.
I'm going to stop you right there. Yes, I did a whole lot of research with undergrads, but Loretta knows I did a lot of research with master's level students.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, I guess I ended up. I can't even remember now. I think it was over. I did over 100 master's theses.
Yeah, hundreds of them, and I was one of them. One of my fondest memories, and I know I'm jumping
good
around here, but one of my fondest memories, and I don't know, Steve, if you'll remember this. We were doing some research in a rat lab, where we had these cages of rats and we were testing them on tryptophan. Do you remember the tryptophan research?
Mm-hmm.
And so we were injecting the rats with the tryptophan. We were injecting them, not with the tryptophan, but we were injecting them with something that would make them nauseous. And then we were giving them water that had tryptophan in it. And I didn't like to inject the rats. So Steve was like, I'll do it. I was like, okay. So I'm in preparing the solutions and helping with, the syringes and things. And all of a sudden, he cranks up Creedence Clearwater Revival. And we both have on these white lab coats. And he is dancing around with a rat in his hand to CCR. And I'm standing there looking at him like, oh my God, this dude is crazy. But it's one of my fondest memories, and I started dancing around with him, and that's actually how I got introduced to CCR.
CCR is a good group.
It is. It is.
Speaking of being introduced to groups, Steve, how did you get involved with STP and with Psych-I? How did that happen?
Actually, Psych-I came first. For some reason, my three professors at SMU decided after a couple of years of 4.0s that maybe I would be an okay person to induct into Psych-I. So they did that. And it just sort of, okay, I was in Psych-I, and then I went to TCU for my PhD, took my first job at King College in Bristol, Tennessee, and that little school, and it was little then, 300 students on a good day. But we did turn out a Rhodes Scholar the first year I was there. Anyway, that taught me more about collegiality than TCU had. My PhD was simply a license to go out and do something, I guess. Because my real influences were at SMU, and then learning what it was to be at a small liberal arts college where you had colleagues who valued you, even if you were in psychology or if you were in religious studies or whatever you might be in. People respected each other, and that I valued. And the working with students really started at King College. In fact, I think I was one of the only faculty who published anything. And they were rat projects, and students were right in there as authors on those projects. And to me, that's the way it should be. The students are not to be used and abused, and the faculty gets all the rewards. Students are to be treasured and nurtured and helped.
And you've instilled that in all of your students, because I have had before students working with me published on papers, because guess where I learned that? And then I have students in a research lab with me now. They worked on a paper last year that we took to SWPA. They were thrilled beyond words because that was their first introduction to a professional conference. And I remember going to those professional conferences as students and having my eyes just, wide open and just in awe. I was like, this is what psychology is about. And then I realized, okay, this is really what the scholarship of teaching of psychology is about. So a lot of the things I do now are things that I was taught by Steve and by Randy Smith. I still do those things because I learned from the best.
Mm-hmm. Well, you asked about STP. And as many of us would say, it goes back to Joe Palladino and his conference in Evansville. And one of the greatest treats for me, I went a couple of years by myself, and then I took a colleague from Kansas City with me on 1 year. Then I woke up and said, whoa, wouldn't it be cool to take all the graduate teaching assistants with me? And we did that. And it just sort of grew from there. I really, really liked the collegiality, the information exchange, everything about a conference like that just sort of rang a bell with me. And somewhere along in there, I decided maybe I should give APA a try. And I took these would actually be before Loretta came, Brenda Anderson and Susan Nash. And Kathleen and I and those two flew to Toronto for our first APA convention. And I liked what I saw, but there were so many things that could be added to that in terms of division, as it was then, Division II. And I just sort of got involved with that. And it sort of grew from there.
Steve, how did you and Joe decide to collaborate on an intro psych textbook?
That started with me. I had been doing, when I was at Austin Peay State University in Tennessee, I had been doing reviews for Chris Cardone at Macmillan Publishers. And she still remains, in my mind, the best editor ever.
Completely agree with that one.
Anyway, she would come in, when are you going to write a book? When are you going to write a book? And I said, something like, maybe when hell freezes over. I didn't want
it's really cold out, isn't it?
Yes. I didn't want to write a book. And my rationale at that point was, if I get involved in writing a book, it'll take away from working with students. So I was pretty firm on that. I left Austin Peay and went to Emporia State. And Chris Cardone flew all the way out to Kansas City, rented a car, drove to Emporia, and begged and pleaded. And I finally said, oh, okay. And then I said to myself, I don't want to do a whole book by myself, because there are areas that I don't know much about. And at that point in time, I had never really worked with Joe Palladino. Unfortunately, he is at times, difficult individual to work with. But
okay.
we did well with the book. It went into 6 editions. And it went to all sorts of different publishers. You know, when Macmillan was sold to Prentice Hall and so on and so on. And
Steve, do you feel that way about all your co-authors?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Whether they
Thank you.
whether they be on books or on journal articles.
In fact, it's kind of rare for you to express anything even the slightest bit negative about someone. In fact, one of your big fans, Ludi Benjamin, said you shouldn't be trusted because you like everybody.
Well, I'm not saying that I dislike Palladino. He was just difficult to work with.
Agreed.
You can separate the person from the behavior.
Oh, that's too mature. Wait.
What does that mean?
Thank you.
Nothing.
Thank you.
Nothing. Nothing. Just spouting off psychological platitudes over here.
If I remember correctly, Jane, weren't you going to ask Steve about a story about an esteemed STP person?
What?
I think his initials are Charles Brewer.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Oh, you're going to, this is what your friends do. Hey, Steve, do you have any interesting stories about Charles Brewer that you can share with us?
More than you want to know.
No, I don't know about that.
Shall I tell you about the pissing contest?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Well, okay. We would have Charles come to Emporia State to talk every once in a while. And Charles would come and he would stay with us in our house. I'll tell you the rubber duck story first. Charles loved to take baths. He absolutely thrived on getting in the big bathtub upstairs, not shower. No, bathtub. With the rubber duck. And he would be in there splashing around, squeaking the rubber. Can you imagine Charles Brewer doing that?
Yes, I
don't
can.
want to.
I can.
No, I don't want to.
Well, he did tell me that growing up in the state of Arkansas, as he did,
Yep.
that he was a little bit rowdy at times, which is hard to believe. And he told me about the pissing contest. And they would draw a line in the dirt, and they would run up and do their thing. And whoever shot the farthest won the contest.
Literal.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you and Charles had a pissing contest about who gave the best talk, who got the most invites in a year, but you're talking a literal contest.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Jane, is that the story you were thinking about?
No, I don't know what story you're referring to.
Okay. It might be the one about Bobby.
Oh, that could be. Yeah, why don't you can tell that story. Go ahead.
You were there too.
I was there. I witnessed it. Yes.
Would it have been with a Robert Sternberg?
It was with a Robert Sternberg, who was given the honor of introducing Charles for one.
No. It wasn't Charles. It was Charlie. He introduced Charlie.
Well, yes. He was given the honor, but he screwed it up by introducing Charlie. And then he left early and kind of apologized to Charlie. And I think Charles said something like, "Well, thank you, Bobby."
Yes.
Psych Sessions is proud to partner with Macmillan Learning. At Macmillan Learning Psychology, content matters, and these days, digital content matters more than ever. Macmillan Learning's Achieve elevates interactive teaching and learning with an extraordinary range of online course content in a powerful yet easy-to-use platform. Interactive ebooks, innovative assessments, engaging videos and activities, helpful instructor resources. Achieve brings it all together and makes it easy for you to find what you need and what you want. See for yourself. Go to macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions for an introductory tour today. Macmillan's Achieve for Psychology, engaging every student, supporting every instructor, setting the new standard for teaching and learning.
Had anyone ever called him something other than Charles his entire life?
Never.
Like even his mother called him Charles.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you know that in the state of Arkansas, when he was in high school, his high school basketball team won the state championship?
Oh.
He liked to brag about that because it seemed so unbelievable when you knew him as a professional.
Exactly.
Yeah, three-piece suit and tie, you don't think that.
Yeah.
I played basketball with him and several other individuals when we were at Clemson doing the AP Psych reading, and he and I would play, we would play horse and we would play 21, just shooting basketball. And I remember the very first time I beat him and all the other guys in playing horse, and they all fell to the ground and back up to me. Good memories.
Yes.
Steve got me involved with that as well. Thank you. I spent about 20 years doing the AP reading, and it was because of Steve. He sent me a message and said, "You should do this." And I said, "Okay." And I did.
And that's one of the big regrets that I have at Emporia. The chair of the department was required to be on duty on Saturdays. And that precluded me doing a number of things like AP reading, but that didn't keep me from encouraging others to do it, because that's an important thing to do.
It was a game changer.
Yes.
Well, in fact, Loretta and I were roommates. Were we roommates a couple years at Advanced Placement? Yep.
Yeah. And then Eric and I met there.
Is that where we met? I don't remember. I believe you. I just don't remember. I have Loretta stories that I've told on a different podcast about experiences in Kansas City. That's for sure.
Yeah, so we've told those. Moving along.
I've even heard those stories.
Oh, I'm so sorry, and I've already apologized to Loretta. All right, I just make that clear. Steve, any other great stories that you've retold about colleagues? I mean, maybe you've got some stories about Randy Smith or Jane Halonen, or any fond memories that you reflect on and go, man, or Barney Bynes, that whole crew.
I'd like to hear Jane's story.
Yeah, me too. Or Bill Buska's story. Yeah.
No, we don't have a Bill Buska story, do we?
I'm sorry. I'll edit that part out.
Wrong. But I'm not going to tell Buska's stories.
Thank you.
I'll tell a Jane story.
Even better.
Yeah.
It's not even a bad. It's a good story.
Oh, of course.
They're all good.
We were still in Emporia, and the phone rings, and it's Jane, and somehow the conversation got around to she was going to Ireland. And she was going to take her husband with her.
Oh, that's not true.
He was going to go with you.
No, he wasn't. I promise you. I can't get him out of the house.
You sure? Because how come you had an extra, you had a room for two people? Well,
I had a room for two people. And what you're referring to is I served for a while as the coordinator of the Improving University Teaching International Conference. Ooh, fabulous duty. I'm glad somebody did it. Me especially, because I got to see much of the world through that. And they scheduled a trip to Ireland. And so on the phone to you, I casually mentioned, I'm headed to Ireland. And then you can take over the story from there, I think.
Basically, it just sort of evolved into Kathleen could go with you.
Yeah.
And she did.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had a fabulous time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was so fabulous that we had to go, Kathleen and I had to go back the next year.
Yeah.
Only we went to the West Coast.
Yeah, and I have to say it was a little startling to me. I can't remember if Kathleen was on the phone or not, but Steve mentioned that she really wanted to go to Ireland. I said, well, I'm going to Ireland. Why didn't she come along? And this was like a week or 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
I mean, not much notice. And then sure enough, I get a call back and said, well, if you're serious, I'd be happy to go with you. And I said, oh, yeah, come. We'll have fun. And we did. We had a great time.
Isn't that great?
That's a good story.
Yeah, the Ireland experience has molded my appreciation, one, for Ireland. And whenever I see something on PBS or whatever, one of their documentaries about Ireland, we've watched a good bit of that, including one called Ireland's Hidden Islands.
Mm.
And
it's a beautiful country.
Oh, well, the one that has had the biggest impact, they did a special on Valentia Island, which is a little teeny island at the southwest tip of Ireland. And there are two ladies there who make vermouth.
Back to your major.
And, oh, yes.
Purple major.
His first major.
And you're saying to yourself, vermouth? Yuck. I had never really even drunk vermouth. But, okay, these ladies import high-quality white wine from Italy. That's their base. And then they source all of their botanicals from Valentia Island. They have a botanist who goes around and tells them how it's going to taste. And then they top it off. They cook brown sugar until it caramelizes but doesn't burn, and they dump that in. And they're the only ones making vermouth in Ireland. You can only buy it by ordering it from one of two distributors in Ireland, and it's among the top 5 vermouths in the world. And I won't say anything really negative. I really hate the tariffs.
Oh, gotcha.
I ordered 2 bottles of this vermouth. It's not expensive, and I paid £100 sterling to have it ship 2 bottles to me. The shipping.
We feel your pain.
But it was worth it.
Well, can I tell a Steve story?
Please.
We're of the same generation in STP, which used to be Division II, which really did get its origins, its fuel from Joe Palladino's conference. And so I got to know Steve primarily from the MacTop. Once we both became involved with APA and Division II, Steve very quickly rose in the leadership of STP. And at one point, he reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested in running the Teaching Awards program?" And I was really struck by how generous he was in trying to create opportunities for people to rise in leadership, because I know I'm not the only one who had that kind of opportunity. Now, what's embarrassing to me is I told him no, because at the time, I was sort of thinking that teaching awards were frivolous until I won one. And then I changed my mind entirely. But I think the story illustrates something that is characteristic of Steve, whether he's talking about students or his peers, that he creates opportunities for people as easily as most people breathe. And I think that's one of the reasons why Ben made nasty comments about how well liked you were and that you shouldn't be trusted. I think that's where that came from.
That's clearly a legacy. Let me pile on there. Steve, I actually remember when I met you. You were Psych president. You were giving a talk at NITOP. I'm going to say it was 91. And, 300 people in the room. And you're giving this great talk about teaching and getting involved. And 20 people are waiting to talk to you after this talk. And I'm the 20th in line. I'm purposely last because I might get a couple extra seconds with the keynote speaker, after everybody does their thing. And you were incredibly generous and telling me about opportunities in Psych. You were Psych president that year. And you said, well, we should talk about some stuff. We should think about collaborating. And I'm in year 3 of being an assistant professor, no, again, like Jane said, opportunities. And that led to some collaborations, that led to some publications. We presented together at APA, at MPA, and then we wrote a book together in 2000. And you have made an incredible positive influence on my career, because I would have never gotten into the book club unless I'd have co-authored a book with you. Once you're in the club, it's easier to stay in the club, but I wasn't in that club. And so I owe a lot to you. I really do.
I appreciate that.
Here's the Kleenex, Eric.
This is the tearful portion of the program, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So to follow that up, so what's the difference between a violin and a fiddle?
You
told me this once.
Other than the shape of the bridge on a violin, the bridge is a little flatter. On the fiddle, it's more rounded. The strings are perhaps a little bit higher up off the neck.
Mm.
I see all the music in your background. I read somewhere that you used to own a record company.
Well, yes. Actually, when when we were in Bristol. No, it goes back further than that. It goes back to Lexington, Kentucky, when I would spend the night, and this is going to shock some of you. One of the people who lived on the street where I lived was Paul Bear Bryant, who was the head coach at University of Kentucky football. And well, he'd left Kentucky and went to Alabama from there. But I played a good bit as a young boy with his son, Paul Jr. And I'd spend the night with him, and that was interesting. And if it was a Saturday night, I would listen to the old Renfro Valley Barn Dance, which was one of those country music radio shows. And I took that love of that music with me to Dallas, and it just sort of grew into the record collection. Well, actually, okay, we go back to Bristol. In Bristol, I started judging fiddle contests. And I would take students with me to go judge fiddle contests. And there were some good pickers at King College. We'd go and judge, and there was a group in Alabama that wanted to make a record. And they had gone to the radio station, and they had done a demo tape, and they sent it around everywhere. And at that point in time, this would be in the late 60s, early 70s. That was a time when fiddles and banjos and that sort of stuff were not the thing with record companies. So I got together with them and we talked about it, and we decided we'd put out our own record, and we did. And my friend, the leader of the group, we were talking, what are we going to call this thing? What's the label going to be like? And he was listening to a record by the former governor of Louisiana, Jimmy Davis, who is known for writing "You Are My Sunshine." And the song that was playing was called the Davis Limited. So he said, well, let's call the record company Davis Unlimited. And I don't know if you'll even be able to see this.
Yeah.
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 That is one of the labels. And it just sort of mushroomed from there. And I ended up having 45 LPs that we put out. And I guess it was maybe 20 years ago, the Cannon County Arts Center in Cannon County, Tennessee, decided they wanted to start reissuing my LPs in CD format. And I worked with them, and I think we did 7 or 8 reissues. And then they sold the record company that they had, Spring-Fed Records. They sold it to the Center for Popular Music at Middle Tennessee State. And things just sort of mushroomed from there. And I think we lack maybe 4 or 5 LPs of having all 45 reissued on in CD format.
Wow.
Steve, I want to be respectful of time. I have one more question for you, and then I want to let Jane and Loretta chime in with whatever they want to ask or say. If you were to do your entire academic career all over again, would you do anything differently?
No.
Okay, that's the end of my question.
No, and I think I will say this about my academic career. I have never had a trajectory or a plan that, I need to be here in 3 years or 6 years or whatever. I just sort of floated along, and actually I got into a major discussion with my major professor at TCU, who told me, you must do programmatic research. And that's when I decided I don't have as good ideas as my students, so we're going to let the students tell me what to do. And that's what we did.
I have the perfect follow-up question.
Yeah.
One of the reputations that you have is that you had the largest curriculum vitae on the planet. And I'm wondering if you could either tell us how many pages it ended up being, or how many actual publications are credited to you from your long career of not having a planned trajectory.
Page-wise, the Vita, the last I even messed with it, and that's been a long time ago, it was like 118 pages. And I just lost count. I really have no idea how many. I know that the number of presentations, 700-800 presentations.
That's what I would have guessed. Maybe 900.
Could be.
Yep.
I don't know.
Okay.
Can I tell a quick story about that? So when Steve retired from Emporia, there was a roast and I wasn't able to attend. And so I made a video and I sent the video, and I actually rewatched it again this morning. First off, it was great to have hair. I just want to mention that. But in this video, I make a joke about, Steve sent me his CV for this. At that time, it was 114 pages. And I made this gag about, ironically, my own CV is 114 pages. Unfortunately, it's a 96-point font. And so that's the only way my CV will ever be over 100 pages. So Jane, thanks for asking that.
You're welcome.
Loretta, your turn if you have anything. Parting thoughts.
I am just grateful for this moment in time. I'm just basking in it. Steve knows how much I care for both him and Kathleen. I try to tell them every time I get an e-card, which, by the way, I love. And my grandson has started expecting them as well. So he says, hey, did you get a card? Did you get an e-card from that man? So he loves watching the videos of the e-cards, and I appreciate them.
Well, tell him one's coming for Halloween.
Okay, I will tell him. He will be excited. But I am just grateful for your friendship and your mentoring and your molding and just for you being in my life. I appreciate that.
Thank you. It has truly been a pleasure. Absolutely.
Steve, I'm going to try to give you the last word before we sign off. Any last words?
No, well, I guess I would simply encourage faculty to listen to their students and enjoy what the students have to say. They have some really good ideas for research and projects. Don't turn them down.
Steve, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.